Hey everybody, welcome back to the Trucking Exec channel. Today is Easter, so happy Easter to everyone. I hope you're able to spend it at home with your families. For those that are out on the road, this is just an unforgiving industry when it comes to things like family events or holidays. So for those out on the road, thanks for making this country go around and everything that you guys are doing. I want to talk briefly in this video about the $4 per mile rate. Two things for there's two reasons why I'm kind of making this video. One is I track a lot of data, a lot of trends, a lot of rates. And now that it's Easter, that means it's April. And April represents kind of the next inflection point in the transportation industry when rates and freight begin to increase. And I think it's an exciting time for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. Not only do I track a lot of the data and a lot of the rates, I also follow some of the other forums online that discuss rates and mileage and things of that nature. I see a lot of different numbers on these forums that are being thrown out, you know, $3.50, $4, $5 per mile rates. And I see so many people getting so frustrated and so disheartened and feeling like they're running their business poorly because they're not securing that kind of a rate. I had a conversation about 2 or 3 weeks ago with quite a few owner-operators at a truck stop one evening. We were talking about the state of the industry and rates and things of that nature. One of the individuals mentioned that he was picking a load the next morning that paid just a few cents over $4 per mile. Many of the other drivers were just blown away by that rate, by that number, and asking lots of questions. But several of the questions that weren't asked were a lot of the questions that popped into my mind. And so we sort of started having some of this conversation. And what came out of that was a lot of information that some of these guys weren't aware of. And so I want to talk about that briefly. First and foremost, a $4 per mile rate maybe isn't always what it's cracked up to be. And it's up to you to determine whether or not that's a good run or not. So first, let me say this. If you don't track your numbers and your cost per mile, and your profitability and your loss and things of that nature, you should, because if you aren't, understand that many brokers do. I can tell you for a fact that in our business, we had secured some really strong rates from some relatively large brokers. Brokers not typically known for paying the rates that we were receiving. And we received those rates pretty consistently for a year and a half or 2 years. What changed was when we started accepting rates from that broker that were significantly lower because maybe we had a truck in a bad area or something to that effect, all of a sudden it became very difficult to get those previous rates that we had been achieving. So the broker had determined that, goodness, this particular carrier only takes higher rates. Now that they're willing to take lower rates, it became really difficult for us. I mean, it was a battle. And quite frankly, it's a battle that we're still not winning. So understand that the brokers track a lot of data. They keep a scorecard on how you perform, but they also track the rates that you accept. So be really cautious if you're working with a broker that you have a relationship with, that you typically get really good rates with. Be really cautious when it comes to taking lower rates from those brokers. You might be cutting your nose off. It's a dangerous game, so understand that. So back to this gentleman's $4 per mile run. When I asked him, had he taken this run before, he said, yep, he was familiar with the receiver or the shipper. He's taken this a few different times. Turns out it was a 40-mile run. Okay, so quick back of the napkin math says the guy is going to make somewhere between $160 and $175 in revenue. He also mentioned it took him about 8 hours between getting loaded and tarped and delivery and unloading for this run. Just because that doesn't initially seem like a particularly good thing. I mean, all of a sudden it goes from, hey, that's a really great rate, to all of a sudden, wow, 40 miles and you've got to spend 8 hours to doing it. Maybe that's not a good deal. I think the answer lies kind of maybe somewhere in the middle with a few more questions. For example, where's this individual at on a 70? If he's able to secure another $160, $175 at the last, at the very end of his 70 hours, then maybe that's not a particularly bad thing. As it turns out, this individual was 2.5 days into his 70, so maybe not the best rate. Ultimately, what matters is, not my opinion, it's what matters for this individual's business. All of our businesses can be drastically different, and so it's really hard. But what isn't different is the fact that we all should understand what our costs are, what our profitability is or isn't, and we need to be tracking that. Then and only then can we determine whether that $4 per mile rate for 40 miles and 8 hours worth of work is a good thing. The last piece is, where does that run going to deliver? For example, I see a lot of times when guys say that, hey, I'm getting $4 or $5 a mile for a 500-mile run, right, or 600-mile run. A couple things jump to my mind then, right? Where are you picking? Where's that load going to deliver? Are you going to be able to get a decent rate coming out of that area, right? The other piece is the loading times and the unloading times, right? If you're getting loaded at 0600 on a Monday morning for a 600-mile run or 700-mile run, but you don't get empty until, late the next evening, maybe in fact you've lost a fair amount of time that you could be achieving revenue and profitability. And then there's deadhead, right? That's its own topic. I would say this past year, with rates being as strong as they are, I think it represents an opportunity to maybe increase your deadhead for some really good for some really good rates. The past several months, rates are good, but they're not like, I don't see a lot of crazy rates that are out there like we did late last summer. For me, I don't want to deadhead significant miles unless there's a really crazy great rate. Right? A deadhead still represents a loss to your business, right? So make sure that when you're losing that revenue, that profit to deadhead, that you're going to be making it up in strides for that next run that you're going to take. So that's kind of just a quick video on maybe the $4 per mile rate isn't always what it's cracked up to be. Don't feel bad about those individuals. Applaud them for getting a great rate and be supportive, but also understand that there's a lot of other factors that go into that. Not just the rate, but profitability is what matters most to our business. Guys, it's Easter. It's April. I hope that April and the rest of the summer is great for our industry. As always, if you guys are making miles, stay safe. Take care.